These are the stories of Careblazers, the stories of husbands, wives, sons, and daughters whose world is forever changed since caring for their loved one with dementia. You'll hear stories of heartbreak. You'll hear stories of love. These stories are real, raw, and powerful. I hope these stories show you you're not alone, and I hope they give you some inspiration and help as you go through your caregiving journey.
Robin, thank you so much for being here today to share your story with everybody. Take a moment to tell us a little bit about yourself and who you care for.
Thank you, Natalie. I appreciate this opportunity. I am a 61-year-old widow, and in 2016, I moved in with my mom because I was sold the house and was figuring out what I was going to do next. And I noticed some things. And I noticed finances were not being handled well, which she was always, to the penny. She had 3 bottles of medicine in the cabinet that weren't touched. And her response was, oh, well, they just keep refilling it. I'll tell them to stop. So I started going to her doctor's appointments with her, and I bagged up all her meds. And she's like, oh, no, the doctor knows what I take. I'm like, okay, I just want to understand what they're for. And I showed the doctor, we got 3 bottles of this. And she was like, oh, so right. She picked up very quickly that I had concerns, and she did the simple memory test, and she didn't do great on it. And so the doctor and I have been working well together. She never referred us to a neurologist or anything, but Mom had a surgery. I think she's had a few surgeries, but she had a breast removed, and the surgeon was actually the husband of her primary doctor.
Oh, wow.
But, yeah. So he was like, well, she can probably drive in a couple of weeks. Just take her to a parking lot. And I'm like, no, that's not what we're doing. And her doctor and I have been working together about when do we assess her driving. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I'm okay with whatever they decide. I don't want to be the one to make that decision, because she would be, oh, well, you made me nervous or whatever. So that's when we went to an occupational therapist for driving. And it was very interesting, the coping mechanisms Mom had, like doing the maze. She just skipped and, she cheated. She's very resourceful. Her friend told her about the test and told her that she had to know all her kids' birthdays. So she was like drilling me. It looks like she was studying for a big exam, So when's your birthday? When's your brother's birthday? And I'm like, you can't take a cheat sheet in with you, Mom. So anyways, that was the first time the D word was used in front of her. And so the occupational therapist is like, you have mid-stage dementia.
Okay, so at the primary care appointment, when the doctor did the mini test, she didn't say a diagnosis or say anything to your mom?
No.
Okay. So what happened when the occupational therapist mentioned this?
Mom kind of looked at her and she says, well, do you feel like you're having some problems with your memory? And just like, yeah. And she said, we would feel really bad if you didn't have a reaction time, you didn't put on the brakes. And so they, said it's time to retire your driving, which was a nice way of putting it, and got reported to the DMV. And she kind of complained about it a little and made up her excuses. Oh, well, it was all on the computer, and you know how I am with computers. And so I just kept reiterating, well, Mom, I'm glad we figured this out before you hurt yourself or someone else. Mm-hmm. And a nice family from our church has little kids, and they live up the street. And I said, you would feel really bad if you were driving down the street and one of those kids ran in the street in front of you and you weren't able to stop. You would feel really bad. Oh, yeah, I would. So I just kept reiterating that. And I even copied the letter from the DMV or the OT saying, so when she wasn't, well, I don't know why I can't drive, I would show it to her. But she doesn't hold on to that. I don't think she really gets that she has dementia. She'll say, well, I don't know. My thinking is off or whatever. So
Yeah.
we just kind of roll with it. And then her doctor was like, we could do the whole testing and the whole diagnosis, but it's not going to change anything.
Mm-hmm.
So we're just kind of working together at navigating this with her, and adjusting meds and stuff. And so it's, that's when, I also noticed things 9 years ago. So we were having a barbecue on the 4th of July, and she was hosting, and she always did. The parade goes by her house, and we were having like 25, 30 people. And my, guy I was dating at the time, who became my husband, she pulls out 1 pound of hot dogs and 1 pound of hamburgers for 25 to 30 people. And we're like, I think we're going to go to the store and get some. And so we realized then that, there's a disconnect, because she's hosted a lot of barbecues before, and she's worked in food service. So she knew previously. So that was like a hiccup that we saw early on.
At that point, did dementia even cross your mind, or did you what did you think at that point?
Well, her mother had vascular dementia and had strokes. Her father had vascular dementia. Her mom had it really young, like in her 60s.
Okay.
But so I knew that there was potential. She was still working at a little manufacturing, gluing magnets on these little trains. And, but she would get yelled at a lot across the room, which is, inappropriate way of handling things. And so she just, it was stressful for her. So she quit. But she'd take a friend on a road trip to Maine and drive. And I'd be like, So I was like, okay, I'm driving you to Maine. Like she'd tell me about
before you moved. Okay. So even before you moved in with her, you were kind of thinking something's going on here, but it became really apparent when you moved in with her.
Exactly. It was like she thought she had transferred money from one account to another and wrote some checks, and it ended up wasn't what happened. And she bounced checks. Oh my God, they're going to shut my lights off. And I'm like, do you know how many people don't pay their electric bill, Mom? Like, you've been paying for 50 years. I think they were not going to shut your lights off right away. So I started to help, I said, here, let me take this over. Let me help you with this. And she's been very good about that. But
okay. And then when I'm curious, so when the occupational therapist mentioned you're no longer safe to drive, like it's recommended you retire from driving, you have dementia, was that also the first time you had heard the diagnosis?
I think her doctor and I were kind of saying that this is the road we're on. That it was first, she was early or mid-stage cognitive decline is how she worded it. But then on her doctor reports, she's been adding dementia with Alzheimer's. And so at this point, she's had breast cancer. She had bilateral subdural hematomas, which really messed with her. So she had bilateral craniotomies a couple years ago. Wow. And that was a setback. And she almost didn't come back to baseline. And I thought they were going to have to go in again. And it was, that's even more invasive.
Yeah.
And, but she's like, I got these holes in my head. I'm like, yeah, you had surgery, but you're a rock star.
Wow. And so how is she handling it now? Does she ever try to drive or get in the car?
I've always joked around, and my husband, I ended up marrying the guy I was dating, and then he had cancer when we got married. But so we used to call her Miss Daisy, and it's like, oh, Miss Daisy, let's drive Miss Daisy. And she didn't understand the movie that came from or what that meant, but she loved it. And she's like, I just like to go for rides, and I can look around better. And so I'm like, we still got your van, but like we hid the keys, and we can take you for a drive. And we just had the van towed out a couple weeks ago because it was it was rusting through and stuff. And she was like, okay, somebody's going to take that van. And she kept obsessing about it. And once it's they hooked it up. She shed a little tear, and she's a pretty
Aw.
stoic Vermonter, and she shed a little tear about it. And I gave her a hug, and I said, "Oh, it's hard, isn't it? You know?" But she was glad that somebody else is going to be able to get parts from it or whatever, and it's going to help somebody else. So it's out of sight, out of mind, gone.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
but she would talk about, well, I'm just going to take the car and, or she would say, oh, well, I can walk. And I'm like, no, because you need somebody with you, so she's had a lifelong fear of being lost since she was 4 years old. So she has not ventured off her property. She took off one day with her walker because I was in a Zoom meeting and I didn't acknowledge her when she was done her thing. And I went to check on her. I thought she was sweeping the porch and she was gone. And she'd gone out back with her walker and she goes, well, did you miss me? I was running away.
Oh, wow.
It's pretty sassy. But
yeah.
So she's like I think she was a pretty little sassy girl when she was younger.
That's funny.
Yeah.
So like now that you're on a Zoom with me, what is she doing?
She's downstairs and Brady Bunch is on. Okay. I also have a client with a severe TBI that moved in with us in October. And she thought he was living here anyways. And we all get along really well. So I'm just saying, can you just keep mom occupied? I have a really important meeting. And so we'll see how that goes. And I told her, but she's not gonna remember. She's very shadowy. She's like, she used to love to sit on her front porch, but she doesn't like to alone. Like, anybody gonna sit with me? And I'm buzzing around trying to put mulch in the flower beds, and I'm like, you stay there and I'll bring over wheelbarrow mulch. And next thing I know, she's following me. So,
wow. How do you handle that? Because I imagine that's hard for you to get some alone time or personal time if she's always wanting to be with you.
She's pretty good most of the time. Like, she gets up early and I don't. And so she started to worry, she thinks she lives somewhere else at a community. Where is everybody? And that's it. I'm not going to stay here anymore. Nobody wants to work. And so I have a baby monitor and I'll talk to her, but she thinks it's somebody named Marlene that works there. So when I come downstairs, she'll say, I don't want to go today to her day program. I go, well, it's closed. Oh, good. That Marlene last night.
Oh, that's funny. So she thinks you are somebody different when you're talking through the baby monitor.
Yeah. So at least Marlene's the bad guy. And I started putting out a card stock that says, Robin is upstairs sleeping until 7:30. You are safe. Oh. And so I try to put that out for her. And she goes, oh, I'm so glad you left that note for me. I used to leave a note on the table. And she was like, where are you? And I was like, I was upstairs sleeping. And she's like, I said, didn't you see the note on the table? Well, that's always there. I go, because I'm always sleeping. I'm always sleeping when you're looking for me, because otherwise I'm with you.
Right. So what do you think is the difference that this note is working?
It's right next to her chair. It's a heavy cardstock. It's pretty simple. I couldn't find it last night. I was away for a few days, so I had to make a new one, but just folding it. And then so when I come down, she goes, oh, thank you for that note. She'll say, so how was Canada? Did you go up there for shopping? She thinks I'm like gone to a party or gone somewhere. And I'm like, no, I was sleeping. No, I didn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
But her, she makes it up what she doesn't know, right? So
absolutely,
she's got a great imagination.
Yeah, it sounds that way.
One morning recently, she was downstairs and I was like, I don't know, 5 o'clock in the morning, and I was saying, it's not morning yet. Go back to bed. I'm still sleeping. And she was like, okay, breakfast is ready. You better come down. It's really good. And she was just like coming up with all these excuses.
She was trying to entice you.
Right. Oh, it's gone, but there'll be more. You better hurry up. It was like, I wrote down like all the different things that she was saying. It was so cute. I'm like, well, okay. That was resourceful, but it didn't work. I mean, I, of course, didn't get any sleep, and I did get up earlier than I would, but I just had to laugh because she was being very creative.
Yeah, absolutely. And it sounds like she likes being around you.
Yeah, she does. And yesterday she said, well, I hope I get to see my family today. And I go, well, who in your family do you want to see? Because sometimes she'll ask about her parents or whatever. She's at different ages. And she goes, well, I'd like to see my daughter, Robin. And so I got in her face and I said, I'm Robin. I'm right here. See, you just saw me. And she just kind of looks at me like, you're old. So not
that's not how I remember my daughter looking.
Right. And she's like, I want to go home. And I'm like, this is the house. This is a kitchen your husband built. My dad built the cabinets and the counters and the table he built. And, all these paintings on the wall are your son's. This is your house. She goes, I know, but my other house. Okay. Well,
does she eventually drop that line of how do you handle that?
Sometimes I'll say, well, we'll go for a drive later. And she's so tuned in. She knows I'm not saying we're going home. Well, that's not what I asked.
Oh, wow.
So, because she gets hyper focused on what she wants. So I'll say, well, I think we're going to stay here tonight. We'll stay together. Oh boy, what a relief. I'm so glad. You're the one that wants to go home. So, is somebody going to be there? They're going to know what I'm supposed to do. So she creates her own worries about going. So I've learned to just say, we're not going home today. We're going to hang out together. And then she'll say, well, are you going to sleep with me? And I used to say, I have my room, Walter has his room, and you have your room. And, I can hear you if you need anything. And she would perseverate. So now I just say, yeah, do you want me to? Okay, I'll sleep with you, and get her in bed, and she'll thank me for the day, for all I did. So she's very appreciative. She goes, and then she doesn't bring it up again about me sleeping with her. So,
yeah. So kind of your answer in the moment, like, yes, you will, reassured her enough. And then when you helped her get to bed, it's not even an issue.
Right. So I think it's part of her sundowning time that she starts to have anxiety and worry about, what's going to happen. And do I have clothes here? And do I have a toothbrush? Yeah, got everything we need here. And I'm getting better about not arguing with her, like correcting her. Early on, I mean, you're just used to your parent. And I do so well with my client because he's not family. And I don't have these pre-existing notions or expectations about him. But with my mom, it's just that it's taken a while for me to agree, and all your videos and the training, the courses and stuff have been so helpful. That, I still slip. I still, I say I mess up every day and I still show up. So here I am.
That's beautiful. I mean, it's real. Absolutely. Nobody's perfect, and you're trying and you're doing the best you can. And it sounds like you're doing pretty amazing.
Yeah. Thanks. We've always had a good relationship, and we've always had fun together and stuff. So that helps. I mean, there's also been, tensions, but for the most part, we've had a good relationship. So,
So what does she normally do during the day? Like, how is a typical day for her?
Well, her day program's starting up tomorrow.
Oh, is this the first time it's opening up since everything was closed?
Yes. Wow. And I will tell her tomorrow morning at 7:30.
So you'll tell her right before she goes. You won't give her
the bus, because every morning she gets up and says, I don't want to be late for the bus. So she's already thinking she's going on the bus. But if I tell her today, she'll be up all night, hour, worried about being late. That's another thing she's hated all her life, was being late for anything. So worrying about being late to get the bus. So I just, I went away this week on Tuesday, and I told her just before we left, I'm going away for a few days with, taking my buddy to see his grandson, and you're going to have Reed here, my brother, and you're going to have all kinds of friends to hang out with you, and we'll be back. And she just said, when are you coming back? I said, Thursday. It ended up being Friday, but she doesn't know what day it is anyways. But she was fine with it. So
yeah, I think a lot of the reason she was fine with it though, is you found a really good way to introduce it to her, like right before you leave. You don't give her that advance notice.
Right. It's like, you don't tell a kid we're going to go get ice cream tomorrow. Because guess what? Every 5 minutes, are we getting ice cream today? No, tomorrow.
Yeah. So what are some of the, would you say are your biggest challenges when it comes to caring for your mom?
Just, not arguing or reacting to what's going on. And when I'm tired, I'm at my worst, of course.
Right.
And so when I'm finding myself being very short-tempered, I'm like, yeah, I need a little breather here. My brother has been wonderful. He lives another town over, and he's an independent artist. So sometimes he'll be here when she gets off the bus until I'm done working with my client. But because of the pandemic, my company's been very generous in letting us work from home. Yeah. And we do a lot of similar activities, life skills stuff. She loves domestic stuff. Mm-hmm. So as soon as she eats breakfast and I'm getting things done, and then she's like, okay, what's next? So I put a dishpan with some little bit of soap and some apples and oranges. Here, can you scrub these for me? And then she scrubs those, and we put them in a bowl, and then I dump it, and we add a little bleach water or disinfectant. And I'm like, okay, can you wipe down all the counters and all the things that we touch a lot? And she might do the same doorknob or cabinets, but she sometimes I'll say, oh, did you do this? And oh, not yet. And so it gets a job done. She loves to vacuum, so I'll set the central vac up, and she'll do that. It's tiring on her, but she'll do as much as she can. I'll give her a Swiffer duster to dust. She just likes doing domestic things. Sometimes I'll have her peel potatoes or peel carrots while I'm cooking, or rinse dishes to put in the, she tries to wash dishes, and it's, either a half a bottle of soap or no soap. So it's like, oh, just going to rinse them and put them in the dishwasher. So she's very, meticulous about rinsing them and setting them on the counter, and then I put them in. And I've started to have her help put away like silverware, but I have to give her like, okay, here's the forks. Because if I give her a variety, she can't sort it out. But I say, here's the forks, and then she'll find them, match them in the drawer. So she wipe the table down. She'll fold these napkins. We have paper napkins, fold these napkins for us. We also, because of the pandemic, she's addicted to paper towels and cleaning. So she would rip off a paper towel and wipe the puddles on the counter and throw it away. And we were like going through paper towels like crazy, and like you couldn't find them in the store. So I bought extra hand towels, like bath towels. And I put a basket by the kitchen sink and a basket by the bathroom sink. And they're one use. So you wash your hands, you use the towel, and it goes right in the washing machine. And then we wash a load. And one of her favorite jobs is folding those towels. Oh, look, got some work for you. We pile them on top of the washer. She goes, oh, looks like I've got some work to do. So it's, we're running a lot of loads of the washer, but it's providing a purpose for her, being useful.
Yeah, you've done such a great job with that. You're taking something she really likes doing, the domestic household type things, and you're adjusting the activity to her ability level, which is so important, not handing her all the different utensils at once, handing her one type at a time so she can match it. And then you're also taking what could have turned into maybe a source of argument or contention, like the paper towel issue, and you found a way to work around it. I love all of that. I think that's so important. And I hope, I'm sure the Careblazers watching are taking away like some amazing nuggets of information in terms of how they can take what you're doing and apply it to their situation. it's great. Thank you for sharing that.
Mm.
Yeah.
I got the Caregiver of the Year award through the State of Vermont Brain Injury Association a couple years ago for the work that I do with my client. So, I like being creative and finding things that he likes to do. And, we ride tandem bikes now, and we go kayaking, and even I can get mom on the tandem bike every once in a while, because she kept talking about going for a bike ride. And so she can sit on the back and hold the handlebars and look around and move her feet. And she's pretty strong. So we can pedal around a block or two. She's been a little leery of it lately, but it's, it's like, okay, let's figure this out. And we cut out magazines. We cut out pictures out of magazines. I was like, oh, let's find all the happy babies. And she gets like ridiculous amount of magazines. And then what do you do with them? So we cut them. We have a box. And now I set up folders with a picture of a baby or a picture of a farm. And she has a caregiver that's with her 3 days a week, so that my buddy and I can work. And I'm like, oh, here's another activity you guys can do. You can sort pictures, you can give her 2 pictures and say, where does this go? And then we glue them on a little cardstock, and we make cards. And then sometimes I'll be like, we haven't seen our church family in a long time. I bet they would like a card from us. Who do you want to send a card to? And I would mention a couple names, and she would write a sweet little message in it, and we would send out cards. And so we just have these different activities. We play bingo, but she can do the B2, but she can't see on her board that she has a bingo, but we just help each other. And my client's really sweet with her. He'll let her win. So
that's amazing. What would you say, since you're somebody who is clearly successful in this caregiving role, and it sounds like you're doing amazing, what would you say are some of the most important qualities for a Careblazer to have when it comes to just trying to do the best you can in this journey?
Patience and creativity. Know what things they liked in their more abled life, and how can we keep a part of that. Like if they liked antique cars, get them a magazine with antique cars, or, cut out pictures from a reminiscence magazine, or, just thinking outside the box, but also thinking of daily activities. I'm a life skills aide. I retrain my client to do things independently. She's not going to be improving. She's declining, but what can she still do? And she's shadowing lately. So in the kitchen, when I'm flying around, she's like, you need roller skates. Sometimes she's right in my path, where I need to be. So I'll either joke around and dance with her, as I go around her, or give her, I'm like, oh, you need a hug, don't you? And give her a hug, or I'll get her busy. Here, can you peel these potatoes? Can you scrub these potatoes for me? Can you peel these potatoes for me? So I remember my great aunt was 94, and I sent her a little thank you card for how she approached in my life. And we went to visit her, and she goes, oh, I was going to send you a card, but I'm busy. I had to make my bed, and I peeled potatoes. And she said to her daughter, how many did I peel? And she said 4. And then Aunt Jessie would laugh that was a big job. But, when you're 94, it is.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, I love what you're saying. It's thinking outside of the box, being creative, realizing that even though they are declining, what can they still do? That's an excellent question. And just adapting any previous interests and activities into whatever their abilities are now. That's all gold information there. That's great. Thank you. So what would you say are the most, for Careblazers listening and watching who could just use some extra help, or some good advice, good recommendations? What would you recommend for them in order to get more help or encourage them? What can you offer?
We have an agency on aging resource. That's wonderful. I found the book, Coach Boyle's Playbook for Alzheimer's Caregivers, and it's through the Alzheimer's Association. It's a little spiral bound book, but he was a coach and his wife had Alzheimer's, and it's pretty succinct. It's not like a 500-page book, and so it talks about the different stages and gives a lot of good ideas. The 36-hour day is a wonderful book. Of course, I'm, the overachiever, want to read it from beginning to end, and I, don't get through it, but it's a beautiful resource with an index that you can go back and say, oh, what am I dealing with now? And, what are some thoughts on that? Somebody else mentioned Creating Moments of Joy Along Alzheimer's Journey, and that's by Jolene Brackey. And that's a little more succinct too. It's like each tiny chapter has different topics, and there's just so many people on Facebook, or there's your videos that have been a godsend. Teepa Snow, I took a class through the local agency on aging called Powerful Tools for Caregivers, the Caregiver Help Book. And it was very, again, you connect with other people who are caregivers, but it was a wonderful resource.
How did you know about that class? How did you know it was coming up?
My mom's day program mentioned it, but my client and I also deliver Meals on Wheels through the agency on aging. And so they, advertised it too. So again, I had to carve out time with him. So it was his time to relax and eat lunch and watch a movie. And mom was with a caregiver. So I could, do the class while we were sitting together, or if I needed to speak, I would go into another room. But it's, it's a juggle to fit it all in, but it's finding those little nuggets of time that you can carve out for yourself makes a lot.
And I'm going to link all of these resources below. I'm going to try to find some of the specific ones you did, but the Alzheimer's Association, Mason Robbins 36-Hour Day is a classic. Teepa Snow, I think most of my Careblazers know about. I'll be sure to link her too. And then also just your local area agency on aging, if you're in the United States, calling them and seeing what's going on, what resources they have. You might even be able to sign up for their email list so that when they do have some sort of workshop or conference or teaching coming up, you'll get alerted to it. Because I think one of the hardest parts about, and I work for a big hospital system and I see it in this system a lot, there's so much good information that's available, resources, classes, groups, things like that. And number one, it's just hard to find the time and to get to these places. But another big barrier I see is that people don't know about it. It's like, we don't know it's happening, or they don't, it's not well advertised, or so it's like all of these things are going on. And I think the majority of people would really love to attend or get the book or get the workshop or watch the recording if it's available, yet they just don't know it happened.
Your 14 days that you just did, I committed to that, and I only missed a few of them, and it really hit home the situation, the thought, and the emotion. And I'm also on your care course, and I was like, oh, it's right here in the course, but somehow that narrowed it down for me, and I'm still working through the other care course, which is just all, it's wonderful that it's there to go back to, that I can step into it when I have a few minutes or take a few minutes.
Yeah, exactly. And for people who are watching this year for the first time, I've only done it once. I'll probably end up doing something similar again, but I did recently a 14-day challenge that turned into 15 days because I can't count right. And it was called How to Make Caregiving 50% Easier. And I think what worked really well with that challenge was just the bite-sized piece of information every day. And of course, the replay is still available, and you can go in the group and watch it right now if you missed any days. But I think the bite-sized way helps. And I think the care course, which you also belong to, which is available several times a year, it's more in depth. you know? So like, even though the videos in there are short, it's kind of like, it's more in depth. Like I go a little bit deeper. So I think the 14-day challenge was good for like a surface level. Oh, if you were in the care course, I was surprised at how many care course members joined actually, but it was more like a refresher for you. And then for those who are not a part of the care course, I think it was more of like their first introduction into, holy moly, I have a lot of control here, and how do I want to show up? So I had a lot of fun with that actually. So yeah, that was a good thing. But yeah, I think, oh, go ahead.
My advice to others is, if you're feeling overwhelmed or, stay connected, find a support group, either online or know you're not alone, and to breathe and put on your oxygen mask first to be sure that you're eating well, you're moving your body, you're resting, finding that time to rest. If your loved one, is taking a nap in a recliner, set a timer for 10 minutes for yourself and take a little power nap. You're worth it.
Yes, I love that. And Robin, do you ever struggle with like guilt or questioning yourself for taking that time? Because I think a lot of Careblazers do. They feel like, you say put your oxygen mask on first, which is absolutely true. I think so many people still struggle with that idea.
I think I'm beyond that guilt at this point. I did struggle with guilt about that because I'm A-type perfectionist. I have the illusion of perfection, and I try to, hang up my superwoman cape, and every once in a while I grab it back. But just, we're doing the best we can. It's not anything we're trained for. Same with raising our kids. There's no book, no manual. I'm also realistic enough that I still have to work full time, and there may come a time when I am unable to do the care as she declines. And so I used to work at an elder care community, and I used to help people plan for their families to go there. So I have around 3 wait lists. And so whether or not we use them, there's that safety net there saying, okay, you might be a 5-year wait list, but she's on the list. And, we'll have options when the time comes.
I love that. So you're saying basically you have your mom on a wait list at different facilities for long-term care should the need come, because a lot of times people wait until that last minute and then they learn there's a 3-year wait list.
Right.
Good. Yeah, that's excellent. Thank you for saying that as well. I think a lot of Careblazers will benefit from that. This interview has been just jam-packed with a lot of really helpful, practical advice. Thank you so much for coming on the show and for sharing all of this with everybody. Any last words you want to share with the Careblazer audience, or anything you want to say that maybe I didn't ask you about?
I also, because of the work I do, my client, we have an emergency fact sheet. And it's a couple pages, and it has all their contact information. It has their conditions. It has their doctors and their phone numbers. It has their medications. It has, power of attorney, all that listed. And so that has been a gift that when I go to a doctor's appointment and they want to know what medication she's on, I can hand them that and they can scan it in her file. I also set up a binder that I go to her appointments with her, and we have a binder, and there's a medical appointment summary. And so I'll write the date and who we saw and what we were there for, and if we were following up on something, and then what the doctor's outcome or if changes of medications happened. And my brother, if he has to take mom to an appointment because I'm not available, he can make the notes, and I'll know what happened, or if he wants to see what happened. And that I even set one up for myself. And so because, I'm not getting any younger, and it may come a time when my daughters, and I also have on the refrigerator, a magnet with a pocket, and I have our emergency fact sheets right there for all 3 of us. So if in the event there was an emergency, or, I wasn't cognitively aware and rescue or whatever was called, they would know about us. So that's been a wonderful.
Yeah, that's important stuff. Thank you. And I couldn't help but notice in your beginning story when you took your mom to the PCP office and the first time you really were getting her checked out, you brought all of her medications. Like you knew to bring actually the bottles, because that sometimes is so telling for the provider. But a lot of times the lists are incorrect anyway. So I think
Right.
that was, you can tell you have a lot of caregiving experience just in that like initial thing that you did. And it's very clear. I'm not surprised at all to hear you were a caregiver of the year for the state of Vermont. It's very apparent in hearing you talk and you sharing your stories now. So thank you so much for being a part of this Careblazer community and for sharing your story with everybody. I really appreciate it, Robin.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Natali. I appreciate you too.
All right, awesome. All right, Careblazers, we'll see you later. Bye.